Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I'm your host, Quianna Canada, and welcome to the Quianna Canada show. Before we get into today's topic, I have a few announcements. And before I get into those announcements, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Remember that your likes and your shares, and if you subscribe to this channel, what it does is it pushes these videos up in the algorithm. It tells the algorithm that these videos are important, but we need to be reminded that just because videos like this aren't pushed up in the algorithm is not an indication that these videos are not important. And there we have it. And so the first announcement is always one that I give is about transnational repression. As you know, I am currently going through transnational repression. That is where states are reaching across their borders to silence the dissent of their citizens and sometimes the dissent of foreign nationals. And it often happens through the colluding of cyber hackers, so people with IT capabilities who are able to hack into social media accounts, email accounts, and manipulate what you see and alter the content and do um, attacks on your websites and your content as well. So we just need to bring awareness to this particular incident. We need to be reminded that it's not okay, that it's something that we need to continuously speak out about. And that's something that I'm trying to do every single day. As another announcement, ladies and gentlemen, I've been very busy this week in my studies. And so basically, as you know, I am pursuing a master's in international human rights law. And so in that program, it's really theory rich. And so I'm learning new theories and learning new ways to research. And so it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be because I thought it was going to be more so teaching us about international law and that the course was going to be international law rich. And but I'm learning that this program is more so interdisciplinary, I guess is what you would say, like thematic or interdisciplinary. And so it's not really focused on international law in its entirety, and that's a little different for me because, I have learned throughout the years to kind of develop uh, a way in which I research law and understand law, and I guess this is kind of similar to the United States in some sense because you know that some of the degrees in United States or most of them are very interdisciplinary, even though you have a major. The most of the courses are kind of like mixed with different topics such as politics or sociological topics if you're taking law. And so I think it's similar in some capacity here. But I am enjoying it. It's been a busy, busy couple of weeks, and there is a lot that I'm learning and a lot that I'm learning outside of the program. So I'm doing a lot of self study on my own. And I think that's something that is important to merge what I'm learning outside of my studies with what I'm learning in my studies. And I think that it's just very enriching. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a new series. I'm doing a new series. Now, I didn't really mean to go off this path and go on to another path, but ladies and gentlemen, the United States President Donald Trump is coming out of the White House and signing executive order after executive order after executive order after executive order. And so it's really difficult to keep up. And every time I turn on YouTube or go on Facebook, there is someone saying that the Trump administration has signed a new executive order. So I'm doing a new series called Trumpian Marker because the marker is in reference to this marker that he uses to sign these executive orders. And so what I plan to do during these series or excuse me, this series is really to kind of go through those executive orders together. So I will be the first to say that in some instances, I will not be reading the executive order um, without coming on camera. So we will be reading it together and kind of evaluating what it is that is contained within that executive order and trying to make sense of it and really to see how it's going to impact either us or other groups that the executive order is aimed at. And so I think that this is a very interesting series to do, and I hope that you like it. And if you find it very interesting, please give me some feedback. And I can just imagine like Trump is going to be doing so many executive orders, and so this is going to be a very um, filled up series. So this is going to be season one, and who knows when season two will start. Okay. As a side note, I really apologize for the quality of this broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in a place where I am able to record. I think what happened is that they either locked up the cameras. So they used to have these uh, external um, HD webcams that you could actually plug into the desktops. And I don't know if somebody took those external cameras or if they lock those external cameras up or if they don't want anyone using it or if they only want educators using it, but they're nowhere to be found. And so I'm not going to fret about that. And so I really apologize for the quality of this video. In some places, I'm able to record and the lighting is really good. And then in other places, such as this place, the lighting is not so good. So I really apologize about this video quality. Now that that is said, let's go ahead and get into today's video. And this is series one. Episode one. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been following the headlines, you understand that Donald Trump and Elon Musk together have actually filed, and I'm sure that Elon Musk is partly responsible for this particular executive order. But what we know is that Elon Musk influenced Donald Trump to sign the executive order that we see, and it is an executive order that is aimed at South Africa and the funding that the United States is giving to it. So let's go ahead and get into that executive order. Let's go ahead and read it. Addressing egregious actions of the Republic of South Africa. And so this is the executive order. And so Trump says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, purpose. In shocking disregard of its citizens' rights, the Republic of South Africa recently enacted this act to enable the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners agricultural property without compensation. So, expropriation act, and so I think this is. It looks like a new act because it's saying 2024. The act follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and hateful rhetoric and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. In addition, South Africa has taken aggressive positions toward the United States and its allies, including including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice and invigorating its relations with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. The United States cannot support the government of South Africa's commission of rights violations in its country or its undermining United States' foreign policy, which poses national security threats to our nation, our allies, our African partners, and our interest. Section 2, policy. It is the policy of the United States that as long as South Africa continues these unjust and immoral practices that harm our nation, A, the United States shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa. And B, the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government sponsored race based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. 3, assistance. A, all executive departments and agencies, including the United States for Foreign International Development, shall, to the maximum extent allowed by law, halt foreign aid and assistance delivered and or provided to South Africa, and shall promptly exercise all available authorities and discretion to halt such aid or assistance. The head of each agency may permit the provision of any such foreign aid or assistance that, in the discretion of the relevant agency head, it is necessary or appropriate for refugee resettlement and other humanitarian considerations. The Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall take appropriate steps consistent with law to prioritize humanitarian relief, including admission and resettlement through the United States Refugee Admissions Program for Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. Such plan be submitted to the President through the Assistant to the President and Homeland Security Advisor. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, Section 5, general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by the law to an executive department or agency or head of thereof, or the functions of the director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. B, this order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. And C, this order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its department, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. Ladies and gentlemen, the part that I want to go to is this part here. The United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property of confiscation. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I want to address that is because you can't, as an American citizen, file asylum, or you can actually flee your country and submit an asylum application, but you are going to get a lot of pushback if you file a race-based asylum claim. I'm living proof. I'm on an asylum application right now. And ladies and gentlemen, it is so difficult because what I'm being told by a lot of organizations such as, or countries such as the Republic of Ireland and other countries, is that you can't file an asylum claim based on race. That there is no race-based discrimination. And we know that the 1951 Convention and its 1967 protocol does allow persons to claim asylum based on race. That is one of the grounds in which you can claim asylum. But do you see, ladies and gentlemen, that this is, I believe, favoritism toward a specific group of people in the dominant society. And so I want to kind of take you back to the history of where this all started. And so I don't purport to know a lot about South African history. I'm an American citizen, and I don't remember when I was going through school that we learned a lot about apartheid. And so what I'm learning about apartheid is coming in specs. And that's because I'm not taking a South African or African history course, but I want to read to you. I kind of want to go into some history about apartheid. This is something that I want to read so that we can learn this together and understand this together. Just- and so let's go ahead and get into it. An Afrikaans term meaning separation used in South Africa for the policy initiated by the nationalist government after 1948 and usually rendered into English in the innocuous sounding phrase, policy of separate development. Apartheid had been preceded in 1913 and 1936 by the Black farmers to 13%. Excuse me, 1936 by the Lands Act, which restricted the amount of land to Black farmers to 13%. But in 1948, the apartheid laws were enacted, including the Population Registration Act, which registered all people by racial group, the Mixed Amenities Act, which codified racial segregation in public facilities, the Group Areas Act, which segregated suburbs, the Immorality Act, which illegalized white-Black marriages, so that's like miscegenation laws, and the establishment of the so-called Bantustans. Am I pronouncing that right? Bantustans, or native homelands to which a large proportion of Black population was restricted. Theoretically, the establishment of the Bantustans was supposed to provide a solution to the racial tension of South Africa by providing a series of designated territories of homelands in which different races could develop separately within the state. But since the white minority retain for themselves the bulk of the land and virtually all of the economically viable territory, including the agriculturally rich areas and the areas with mining potential, it was in practice a means of institutionalizing and preserving the white supremacy. Since the economy required a large body of non-white workers to live in close proximity to white areas for which they provided cheap labor, the Group Areas Act, oops, I dropped a book, excuse me, guys, led the development of specific racially segregated townships using low-cost housing, such as the notorious Soweto area, south of Johannesburg. Under the same act, people of African, Cape-colored, or Indian descent were forcibly removed from urban areas where they had lived for generations. The notorious and still unreconstructed District 6 in central Cape Town, bulldozed and cleared of its mixed race inhabitants under the act, is often cited example of this aspect of apartheid policy. The policy of segregation extends to every aspect of society and separates sections and public transport, public seats, benches, beaches, and many other facilities. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you can kind of see like apartheid is much like the Jim Crow era in the United States of America. And so what's happening is that I think, and if you're South African, you can actually correct me if I'm wrong, and I would invite you on this show. But I think what happened is that there was only like 13% of that farmland that was given to blacks, and the rest of it was, you know, expropriated from the blacks. And I think it was like 70% that was given to the dominant society. I don't think that they say that here in this book that I'm reading, but I think that this uh, expropriation that was happening to, let me see if they actually say that in here about the number. No, so they're not actually saying. I don't see that at all. Let's see. So what I think was that that land was appropriated by the dominant society, and 70% of the dominant society actually held on to that land. And I think that they're still suffering from those effects today. But now there is a new president in South Africa who is in office, and I think what he was trying to do is to do reparations for the people of South Africa and give some of that land back to the descendants of the excuse me, the descendants of uh, that area. And so when that happened, there is now a very big controversy, as we've seen with this executive order, which is saying that in shocking disregard of its citizens' right, the Republic of South Africa recently enacted an Expropriation Act 13 of 2024. And so, what Trump means by that, ladies and gentlemen, is that he is talking about the dominant society in South Africa, and that this farmland is being taken away from those in the dominant society. And so, what he's doing now, ladies and gentlemen, is saying that uh, because this is happening, what he is going to do is that if any South African decides to flee South Africa, the United States is going to give them refugee status. And just think about it, ladies and gentlemen. They are going to be flooding into United States, and I don't mean that like in a way that is biased. What I mean by there's going to be tons and tons of South Africans from the dominant society going into the United States, because there are already a lot of South Africans that have already claimed asylum against South Africa. I've seen a lot of South Africans in the Republic of Ireland, and those South Africans are not getting asylum. They're not getting asylum. And so this is probably going to urge those South Africans to go to the United States, and the United States has that in an executive order. So there are going to be a lot of South Africans that are going to be coming to the United States of America. And ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a level of hypocrisy, because I find it odd that a Black American or an American in general, we can't file asylum against the policies and the practices that are happening in the United States. Yeah, we may be able to submit a claim, but our asylum claims are very difficult to get approved. And yet we have the Trump administration right there that is submitting, or that has passed a presidential action, and that presidential action is making it easier for the dominant society to continue to rule, essentially. And ladies and gentlemen, I understand that there is some tension between the South African government and with also the South African government, and also with those people in the dominant society. And I think this is my personal opinion, but I think that Elon Musk was behind this executive order. And it's strange, and so I know that. Let me take a step back. So, as you know, South Africa was the nation that actually spearheaded that case against Israel at the International Criminal Court. And a lot of other countries came on board as well. South Africa was not the only country, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how many countries that was. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So South Africa was not the only uh, nation was not the only nation that filed against Israel. And to reiterate, my stance, like I am standing in solidarity with the Jewish people. That is always going to be my stance. That does not mean that I'm standing in solidarity with war. I'm an anti-war advocate. I don't believe in war. I think that it really harms innocent people such as women and children. And it really falls harder on them because they are very innocents. When we're talking about war, they're very powerless, and so I never ever want to see war happen in any nation. But I think what is happening is because South Africa actually initiated that case against Israel. Now the Trump administration is retaliating by cutting funding, cutting aid, and saying that those farmers that the Trump administration believes are aggrieved in the dominant society can file asylum in the United States and their asylum claims will be approved. Because, ladies and gentlemen, look, I want to show you. Let's go back to that. Let's go back here, ladies and gentlemen. To prioritize humanitarian relief, including admission to resettlement through the United States Refugee Admissions Program for Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that the resettlement program, what that means is that you don't have to go through any procedure of like so say for instance if you file an inland claim, then you have to go through interviews, and if your interview is accept or if they accept your grounds, you get refugee protection. But really with resettlement, there is really no interview. In a lot of cases your claim is taken as prima facie. It's taken as true on its face, and uh, that those grounds are legitimate. And so now all they have to do is file the claim, and and so of course they would have to file the claim, but there's not going to be like an interview throughout an interview process like most people go through. And so and I could be wrong, but I think a lot of the people that I'm speaking to and understanding immigration and asylum law from what I've learned throughout the years. I have a diploma in immigration and asylum law, and I've been in refugee and asylum communities for a very long time. And those who have been resettled have not had to go through an interview. And so I assume it's going to be the same way with the people that are coming from South Africa that Trump is seeking to protect from these policies. And so I want to go ahead and get into some videos because I think it's important to see how the media is reporting this. Let's see. I think we'll start here.
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has spoken with South African-born billionaire and special U.S. government employee Elon Musk. It comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to cut funding to South Africa, claiming that land was being confiscated. Newzroom Africa's Linda Mnisi reports.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa believes diplomatic engagements will help U.S. President Donald Trump understand South Africa's recently signed land reform policy. And while Trump has promised to cut off funding until a full investigation has been concluded, South Africa's ambassador to the U.S. says this is the window to change.
So this is what Trump said. South Africa is confiscating land. And so you can read here, and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. A massive human rights violation at a minimum. It's happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until an investigation of this situation is completed.
It's the false narrative.
I think that having seen the thinness of the allegations against us, I think South Africa should be feeling that we must now get into the game. We must get to those who are agitating the president. We must get to this investigation because
the person that is agitating the president is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is agitating foreign leaders all across the globe. Elon Musk is very influential and he is very messy. And so you'll look that up in the Black community. We say messy. So he's very messy. He likes to keep, conflict going, and not surprised that he did this.
I think we have a rational, reasonable case to put on the table. I think we have already begun to call for a teleconference between Secretary Marco Rubio and Minister Lamola, so that we can start the process of engaging. Now that we know what the terms of engagement are, what the focus is.
There's been fierce criticism against AfriForum's alleged involvement in what led to the stance taken by the US. This has seen calls for action to be taken against the lobby group.
I think that what our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has said, that we are a country with a rule of law, and so we won't be clamping down on an AfriForum. It is our job, that it was.
Parties within the government of national unity have supported efforts to engage the Trump administration about South Africa's Land Expropriation Act. But some believe Trump does not care about facts.
What South Africans and the South African government need to understand is that Donald Trump is the first president in the world who is exactly like the person we experience on Twitter. Doesn't care about facts, doesn't care about information.
So I think the person he's talking about that is on Twitter is Elon Musk.
The cruelty and the rudeness is the point and end goal of what he's doing. We really have to internalize it. There is not very much that we can do in order to convince Donald Trump to change, to become a person who appreciates facts, who appreciates nuance, especially historical nuance in our case. And that means we must temper our diplomatic expectations with the reality that we will still get certain consequences anyway, because he does not care.
While aid by the US government.
And there you have it. Yes, I would agree with that assertion that the Trump administration really probably does not care. Again, this was Elon Musk, his doing. I think that he instigated the situation, he initiated it, and Ramaphosa is reaching out to Elon Musk for his, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see, before I get into that, you'll see here.
Trump and slammed the Ramaphosa government for openly racist land ownership policies.
So do you see that tweet that Elon Musk posted? Why do you have openly racist ownership laws. He posted that, or he tweeted that to Ramaphosa. And so I think this is how this whole thing started, because now, like, Elon Musk is on a war page. What is it? Rampage. He's on a rampage. He is looking for anyone to attack. And ladies and gentlemen, when he attacks, it is something very serious. Let's continue.
Ramaphosa has rejected the accusations and has sought to engage with Trump. Elon Musk's father said amid the growing tensions, he arranged Musk's call with Ramaphosa after a special request was made by the South African president.
So let me get this right. The South African president is seeking to engage in peace talks or negotiations with the same person who has actually influenced Donald Trump to create this executive order, to implement this executive order. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am of the opinion that you can sit across the table from people that you disagree with and try and compromise, that you can try and come to a resolution. But I think it's quite difficult to do that when people have their ears closed, have their eyes closed, and have their mouth closed.
I got a call from the PA of Mr. Ramaphosa while I was having supper in a restaurant, asking me if I can speak to Mr. Ramaphosa. So without divulging things, I was asked if I can arrange a quick talk between Ramaphosa and Elon last night. So I said, all right, so I did. And then they spoke a few minutes later, and it's on my phone.
Ramaphosa told Elon Musk that South Africa respects the rule of law, justice, fairness, and equality, as Trump has accused his government of treating certain classes very badly and conducting human rights violations. Trump later also said that Pretoria is doing much worse, without elaborating. Last month, Ramaphosa signed into law a bill that allows land seizures without compensation in certain circumstances. Land ownership has long been a contentious issue in South Africa, with most private farmland owners by white people, even 30 years after the end of the racist system of...
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, do you see that right there? Whites in South Africa own over 70% of the farm and agricultural holding in the country, despite people of color making up 90% of the population, according to a 2017 South African Department of Rural Development and Land Reform land audit. Ladies and gentlemen, the question is that fair? Is that fair? Would it be fair, like I'm currently in Northern Ireland. Would it be fair for me to own a majority of something that is very special to the Northern Ireland people, and the people of this land not own that? So let's say, for instance, what if there is land here in Northern Ireland, and I'm here and I'm owning all that land? And this is not my owning the land because I am a gazillionaire or a bazillionaire or a trizillionaire. This is my owning that land through exploitation and through decades and decades of exploitation and human rights violations and oppression. Would that be fair? I think the answer to that is no. If there is an indigenous population or people that are situated in that land, it only makes sense for those people to own the land there. And so, for example, you have Black Americans in the United States who are descendants of slaves, and you have the Native Americans. And so after slavery, Black Americans were promised 40 acres and a mule, something that our ancestors never received. And so I think if we did a statistical analysis of who is owning land in the United States, you would see that the dominant society holds most of the land through the transatlantic slave trade, through that period of oppression. And I raise the question again, like, is that fair? Is that fair? I am to argue, no. Let's continue.
Apartheid. Ramaphosa has clarified that the law will not allow any forceful expropriation, but criticism continues. The new land seizure law is also opposed by members of Ramaphosa's coalition government, including the second largest party, the Democratic Alliance, who is a big advocate of white rights. Elon Musk, who left South Africa when he was 17, has also reportedly condemned the reforms. While many saw his close ties with the new US president as an opportunity for South Africa, the reality seems different. Some analysts suggest Musk is upset because his Starlink internet service has not yet secured a license to operate in South Africa.
Okay, so I think that some people are stating that the reason why Musk hit back at the South African government is that he was trying to get this Starlink in South Africa. Of course, you know, he's from South Africa and he didn't yet receive, well, he didn't receive a license yet. And so I think that there is like this tension between Musk and the South African government, and the way that he hit them back was through this tweet that he posted to Ramaphosa about those land laws in the nation.
And those Starlink services have expanded across Africa. It has faced regulatory hurdles in the CEO's native country. Elon Musk is still eyeing to finalize a deal, but his political interventions might further complicate the situation. Are the Trump years going to create troubles for South Africa? Now, for more on this, we have with us Patrick Bond, a political economist who is joining us live from Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Great to be with you, Alison, and your viewers.
Now, President Ramaphosa reportedly spoke to Elon Musk about addressing misinformation and distortions about South Africa. What specific narratives or false claims was he referring to that are currently shaping the international perceptions of the country? And how influential is Musk in countering or amplifying them?
Well, he is an amplifier, isn't he? The control of X.com, formerly Twitter, is the single biggest platform for someone of his political ilk to, let's say, make mischief. And I think he's very much done that by implying that Cyril Ramaphosa is racist against whites. And this isn't the first time. Alison, you'll recall in 2018 and 19, there were controversies when one of the white lobby groups, AfriForum is its name, had told Ramaphosa's people that there was a white farmers' genocide, using a terrible word to describe what were basically some thousands of farm murders, but also break-ins, sometimes due to socioeconomic distress. Terrible situation, of course, if you're a white farmer, but nothing like a systematic genocide. And so that's the most important misinformation that back in the first term led to a confrontation. And I think now it's not only this question of whether the expropriation bill, which is really the kind of bill that many countries have, and they aren't really particularly active in enforcing. For South Africa, for example, we've had 30 years and less than 10% of the land has been redistributed from white owners who, in some cases in living memory, had expropriated it from black farmers to black farmers, and so we haven't really seen yet.
So did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? So Bond makes clear that some of the people in the dominant society did expropriate that land from some of the Black South Africans there in the nation. And I think it's disconcerting that Musk is causing this confusion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the war in Gaza and Israel is one issue, right? But this is a entirely separate issue, and merging the two is just not right. They both deal with human rights violations. I am going to be upfront to say that they both deal with like humanitarian issues and human rights issues. One deals with more humanitarian issues than the other. We know that that's the conflict in Israel and Gaza. And then this situation with apartheid is more so about a human rights violation. And so that's what I mean, that these are kind of two separate issues. So you're dealing with a humanitarian conflict, and then you're dealing with human rights issues and restorative justice over a period of time, and reparation for the people who have been aggrieved by those policies in the past.
Until a rural social movement emerges, I don't think we will. But by the way, another major bit of misinformation is that there's going to be de-dollarization led by the BRICS. And just as another reflection of how ill-informed Trump is, he actually a couple of weeks ago said that Spain was in the BRICS, and I must have mistaken it for the S in South Africa. Of course, it's not. So there are lots of problems in the way Trump reflects on foreign policy.
Right. And Trump's statement on suspending aid over the land reform has reignited global concerns. How significant is the US aid to South Africa? And could this move affect diplomatic or especially economic relations between the two countries?
Yes, the diplomatic relations are absolutely fraught. And the president's main spokesperson, Vincent Quianna, today was trying to put some of the tensions at ease. And he again invited Donald Trump for a game of golf. I mean, I think everyone knows Trump cheats at golf, so I'm not sure what that will accomplish. But the most crucial part of the US aid has been PEPFAR, the presidential executive.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is only going to create more tensions between South Africa and the United States of America, because I can't see how the president of South Africa is going to repeal that act that he signed. And if he does do that, I think that'd be a conversation for another day, but I can't see the nation doing that. And that raises the question, okay, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Program for AIDS, and that's to get medicines. And those medicines were initially for US big pharma corps branded, but then activists said, no, we need to have proper generic medicines made in South Africa. And so they did that, and they were about 5.6 million people. The large.
So to stop right there, some of that funding that was going to South Africa was, I think it was going to medical circumstances where people were very ill. And so I think that that is having a trickle-down effect from these strong policies or this executive order that is actually like very strong, like it is having it's serious. It's serious. And so, for example, if there is an aid packet that is protecting people who are very sick and they can't get that aid, then I think that that is I think that that raises humanitarian issues as well.
A single AIDS program, and by cutting 17% of the program, the roughly $400 million US, that's going to be devastating. And in about 2 weeks, we'll learn whether there is money in other accounts to cover that, because there's a pause on it, but it looks like particularly NGOs that do prevention as well as treatment are going to be badly hurt.
Right, and Musk has been vocal about South Africa's challenges, but his statements have sometimes sparked controversy. Do you think that his conversation with Ramaphosa signals a potential shift in his stance, and could his influence help to reshape the global narratives around South Africa?
I'd be pessimistic. It's actually not only Trump and Musk that have a tight relationship, although you don't never know how long that will last. J.D. Vance, the vice president, has a very tight relationship with Peter Thiel, his funder, who was also raised in white male Johannesburg in the 1980s, a time of little white boys being trained to run the apartheid system or run corrupt economic systems. And I think there's a huge damage done. And the credibility that Musk has here is still very much in question, partly because he has been doing the amplification of Trump's accusations that Ramaphosa somehow got some nefarious agenda. Where Ramaphosa himself is a big landowner, and he's had no real inclination to redistribute very much, aside from some rhetorical and maybe legal gestures, but they haven't really amounted to anything in practice. And I think the dilemma, as you said, Elon Musk wants pressure against Ramaphosa because he wants Starlink and the major Trump as a bully. This is a social justice matter, and the US has no business interfering.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so to reiterate, I don't know enough about the South Africa government, its policies, its politics. I do have an introductory understanding of what apartheid is and how it impacts the people in that nation. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is just the beginning. I think that what we are seeing is history repeating itself. Right now, what is happening is that all of those policies are being stripped away. So any executive order that was in place to add protections, those executive orders in the United States are being repealed. any precedent that is cementing rights into law for marginalized groups. Those precedents are being overturned. And next, they're going to go for legislation. So legislation is probably going to be overturned as well. I wouldn't, ladies and gentlemen, I would not be surprised if they overturn the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they overturned that act. I think what we're seeing, and you can disagree with me, but I think we're seeing history repeating itself. I think that history is coming back. And so what I think is happening is that the Trump administration, through this Project 2025, has found a way to reverse all of the progress that has been made over the years and to slowly chip away at it. And people need to wake up and see that this is exactly what is happening. Oh, wake up. It's in plain sight. It's in plain sight. They are chipping away. Okay, some people are arguing that they're not going to, there is an argument in some of these Twitter spaces that they're not going to be attacking Black people, or none of these policies are going to have an impact on Black people. But ladies and gentlemen, that is what you do. Like, okay, the strongest policy that is in place is the civil rights movement and those policies and acts that came out of the civil rights movement. So what you don't do is you don't start from the strongest link and try and chip away with it. You start from the weakest link. The weakest link is where you start first. And then once that link chips away, then you chip away at the next weakest link, and then you chip away at the next weakest link until you get to that stronger link. Because now that you've been able to chip away at all those links that are weak, now you come to this link that is isolated by itself, and it's going to be very easy to chip away at that. That is what I think is headed in the next 4 years. Now, I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully, like, this is just, my speaking out loud about what I think is going to happen. And hopefully, like, this forecasting is wrong. But it sure does look that way, doesn't it? It does look like they are reversing all of these acts and the precedents and the executive orders. They're doing a reversal to take us back to that horrible place in time. And unfortunately, a lot of people are on board with that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is why I had urged you in the beginning to be strategic in the sides that you pick. Now, I understand that you can pick a side when you see people harmed, and that is okay, because, again, I'm a person who don't believe that there should be harm done to people through humanitarian conflicts and international wars. I'm so against that. But again, ladies and gentlemen, like, look at what's happening. Look at what's happening. And so, is there any real protection? And I must admit, I've been out of the United States for quite some time. And so it's difficult for me to see those protections that are in the United States. And so when I'm looking at it from a person on the outside, what I'm seeing is little protections. And I'm seeing the administrations chip away at those protections. And ladies and gentlemen, you can see how this is happening. Like, now all of those people that have harmed, like all of those police officers that have extrajudicially executed unarmed Black men and women, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, they're being let off. So judges are either pardoning them, they're being pardoned, their sentences are being commuted. If not, their sentences, if not pardoned, their sentences are being commuted. If not commuted, then they're being found not guilty. We have seen this throughout history, but now it's coming in a landslide. Like there are case after case after case after case after case of this happening. Ladies and gentlemen, it is frightening for me to watch abroad. And I think that some people feel like they are protected because they are making money from the Republican Party, but they don't understand that you're being used as a pawn by the Republican Party. The Republican Party is using you as a pawn. And once they finish with you, they won't need anything else to do with you. And so, for example, all of those people who were part of the LGBTQ community who voted for Trump, now Trump is saying that they want to reverse gay marriage. And so it was okay for some of those gay men that voted for Trump. It was okay for them to, trash trans people. And so they voted for Trump. They were trashing trans people, and they were saying, it should be only about sexual orientation and not gender identity. And now the Trump administration is saying, well, it shouldn't be about gender identity or sexual orientation. Let's go ahead and repeal the the precedent that is in place for gay marriage as well. That is what Trump is saying, or at least the Republicans are saying that. And so now those rights are being eviscerated for the gay community, and they don't have anyone to blame but themselves, because in this world, when you are marginalized, you can't think that if other people's rights are not protected, that your rights will be. If your rights are being, if other people's rights are being eviscerated around you, your rights are going to be eviscerated too. And ladies and gentlemen, lately I have just been sitting out of certain movements because there hasn't been a consistency in support for people who are marginalized and people who are being oppressed and abused. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody is an oppressor and everybody is an abuser, because some people are really authentic allies and they really don't want to see any harm on, any harm happening to people. And so I had a talk, I came in one day and I wasn't really feeling good. And I came in and I spoke with one of the workers from Mears, and she told me that she was going to be leaving. She was going to be getting a job at the Belfast City Council. And she told me, you are a very interesting person. I really enjoyed meeting you while I was here. And, I hope you, reach your goals, and, you're a smart person. And ladies and gentlemen, like, that was the nicest thing that somebody has ever said to me since I've been here. And that almost brought me to tears. How it brought me to tears is almost bringing me to tears now. I'm trying to keep it together, but that was the nicest thing that someone said to me in a moment of feeling despair, right? And it's always like little acts of kindness like that that mean so much. And I think when she said it, I think it was very genuine. I think it came from her heart. I don't think like it was um I don't think it was like a microaggression or it was like condescending. I think it really came from her heart. I think that she was being very genuine in what she said. And it really meant a lot to me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I think if we had more people like that in the world who is reasonable and who is able to, who's able to, I think, able to see the good in people, I think this world would be such a better place. And that was what was wrong with what was happening in the Republic of Ireland. Partly what's happening here is that there was this treating me as a folk devil, not anyone being able to see my potential, not anyone being able to see the good in me. And I think what's very unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen, is that that kind of statement didn't come from someone that looked like me. And so I have been trying to find mentors here and to become become a part of a group of people who look like me here. And if something is said and it's said genuinely, or if something is said and it's not said genuinely. And ladies and gentlemen, to reiterate, since I've been here, I haven't had anyone that looked like me stop and tell me something like that. That made me feel that I could just move on, made me feel like I could just live to fight another day, made me feel to make me feel like, I was good enough and that, that I deserved to live a good life. And the question I need to ask is, why is that? Now, those groups of people, like, I care for them dearly. Again, I have mentioned in videos that I will always stand next to them and not, go against groups like that. But it's disheartening. And I think, again, when I came in that day, I felt that when she said that, it was from a genuine place. And that it was from a place of, I know these situations aren't the best, but I hope that you are able to find the light at the end of the tunnel and that you're able to achieve your dreams and be the best that you can be. And that's all people really want to hear, right? They want to hear it from somebody that's genuine, because sometimes we need that. We need to be able to have someone giving us that momentum to move forward. And so I'm saying that, ladies and gentlemen, because I think that it's important that we see what's happening right now in the United States. I think that a lot of people are quick to talk about political issues in the United States, but the question is, like, what are they doing about it, right? What are they doing about it? If you really disagree with what the United States is doing, it's time to take a stand. And I'm not saying go to war, because, again, I'm against war. I'm saying it's time to really call on the United States to be a global leader. And if it can't be a global leader, then somebody else needs to be at the helm. And that's just the truth. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This video has gone on long enough. This is an episode of the Trumpian Marker. I am going to continue to make videos about these executive orders and, make them a part of this series. I hope that you liked it, and I am going to try and improve and make it better. Again, I really sincerely apologize for the for the lighting issues here, and also just kind of like the lackluster equipment that I have. I'm just dealing with what I can deal with. And, as soon as, I'm able to improve and to improve the equipment that I have, or probably to upgrade it, I'll make those changes. But I thank you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And if you have not already, follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook account, and it is there. You can see some of the personal things that I post. I will link my Facebook account in the description of this video. And ladies and gentlemen, we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.